Okay. So Chapter 5 review. Okay, this is the material that's going to be on your Chapter 5 test. Okay, let's start with what functions are. Okay? If you remember when we had functions, we have an input and an output, right? Okay? So if we had a graph, let's say I had a graph like this. Okay, if I had let's say I graphed a line that looked like this. Okay, and there's such thing as lines that look like that. First of all, would that be a function?
No.
Okay, why not?
Because it's not consistent.
Okay, if you ever have a value that, okay, like let's say this point and let's say this point. What are the coordinates of this point? Who can tell me? Over 2, up how many? 3. So this is 2, 3. What are the coordinates of this point? Over 2. Okay. When you have these numbers the same more than once, it can't be a function. Okay? Does that make sense? And if you remember on the video for that day, we did what's called the vertical line test. Okay, if there's anywhere on this graph that I can draw a line from top to bottom and it crosses the graph line more than once, it's not a function. Does that make sense? Okay? So if we have something like that, that's not a function. Okay? But if we had a graph of a line like this, okay, there's nowhere that I could draw a line from top to bottom that's going to cross that line more than once, is there? Okay? This would be what kind, not only is it a function, what kind of function is this? It's a linear function because it's straight. Please pay attention or go. This is for you, okay? So please pay attention. Okay, so you understand that about identifying a function on a graph, okay? If you saw a graph, let's say you saw a graph and you had something like that. Is that a function?
Yes.
Yes. If you had something like that, is that a function?
No.
No. Okay, good. All you have to do on those is identify a function. Okay, now, when we introduce functions, okay, you saw these as f of x, okay? And that means a function of x, okay? That's identifying a function, okay? And let's say I had f of x equals, let's say 2x minus 5. Okay, there's nothing you can do with that until you're given a what? A value for x, okay? So if I told you that in front of this I had f of negative 3 if the function a, all this means is I'm going to replace x with a negative 3, and this means that y is what I'm going to find, okay? So if I plug in negative 3 for my x, I have y equals 2 times negative 3 minus 5, right? And we can, when we identify this on a table, okay, we're actually going to call it a y. We'll keep it as an f of x for right now, as a function, okay? So all we did was replace this x right here with a negative 3. We have a value for x now, right? So if I plug that in, okay, looking at this, what is first? Order of operations? There's not parentheses. These parentheses just imply multiplication. Are there exponents?
No.
No. So I'm going to multiply first. 2 times negative 3 would be what? Negative 6 minus 5. And the function of x, in this case, if the function of x is negative 3, what's this going to be? Negative 11. Okay? So if I gave you this problem, okay, you guys do this one in your notes. Let's say I had f of negative 4 if the f of x equals negative 5x plus 1. Okay, identify that. What's that going to be? Okay, if I replace, what am I replacing x with on this? Negative 4. So this in essence would be negative 5 times negative 4 plus 1. What's negative 5 times negative 4? 20. And 20 plus 1 would give me what? 21. Okay? Does that make sense for the first part of functions? Okay, now, you also had on that first lesson.
Wait, can you leave that there?
I can. I'll work down here. You also had some function tables. Okay? Now, we used tables on almost every lesson in this chapter, didn't we? We used function tables. Okay, if all you're finding is an f of x, okay, you still have, you have an x value, then you have, let's say, f of x equals, we'll make this one easy, 2x plus 1. Okay, then we're going to have an f of x, okay? And on all of these tables, you're given a value for your x's, okay? Let's say this is negative 3, 2, 0, 1, okay? How can I complete this table? What do I have to do in order to complete this table? Remember, x, what did I tell you guys x is also the same as? X is another way of saying what? Anybody?
Y.
Input, okay? This function is like the rule. And what is the f of x? It's like the output, okay? In other words, whatever x is, we plug it into this equation, figure out the answer, and it gives us an output, right? So if I have 2x plus 1 and I replace this x with a what? And I would replace it with a negative 3 because that's what the x value is. This is 2 times negative 3 plus 1. What's 2 times negative 3?
Negative 6.
Negative 6 plus 1 would give me what?
Or, how was it? Wait.
Negative 6 plus 1.
Is,
You owe me 6, you pay me 1.
oh, negative.
Negative 5, okay? This would be 2 times 2 plus 1. What's 2 times 2? 4 plus 1? 5, okay? This would be 2 times 0 plus 1. What's 2 times 0? And 0 plus 1? And this would be 2 times 1 plus 1. Then what would that be? 3, okay? Now, if we took this and we plugged it into, we made this is the same thing as our y, right? So if we were to graph all these points, what should these form? These should form a straight line because this is a linear function, right? Because every single number, every single output has a specific, every single input has a specific output because of the function rule. Okay? What does that mean? If we graph these, did you guys write these down?
Yeah.
Let's graph these points and see if it forms a straight line. Negative 3, negative 5. What was the next point?
2, 5.
Over 2, up 5.
0, 1, 0, 1.
Over 0, up 1. And what was the last one?
1, 3.
Over 1, up 3. Okay. Now, even though these are spaced apart, did they still form a straight line?
Yeah.
Yes, because that is a what kind of function? Linear function, right? Okay. So let's take a look. I'm going to write one up here. I'm going to write, and you might see it on part of your assignments. All you had to do, first you got acquainted with just completing the table. That's what we just did. Okay. And then the next step we took was plugging it into a graph, right? Okay. So what if, okay, you also had a table that looked a little bit different. Okay. Another way we can present the table we did something like this. Let's say we had f of x equals, let's say 2 minus 4x, okay? And on this one, let's say I gave you some values here. This would be my x value, this is my f of x, and f of x, remember, what are we thinking of that like? When we see f of x, what are we saying in our heads? Y, right? It's our output, okay? So this is like our y, okay? So if we give some values to x, on your test, I'm going to actually put values in there, okay? Let's say I have negative 2, 0, 3, 1, and we'll say negative 3, okay? So let's plug these in. Somebody do this one for me. If I plug, actually, you guys complete this table. Complete this table on your own. I'll give you about 2 minutes to complete that table, and then we'll graph it, and we'll see if it's correct. Somebody help me with this first one. How do I figure out what the y or the f of x value is if my input is negative 2? What am I going to do that?
Replace that with X.
Okay, so I replace This would be 2 minus 4 times what? No, what's 4 times negative 2? Negative 8. So what's 2 minus negative 8? 2 minus, if we have 2 minus 4 times negative 2, this means 2 minus 4 times 2 is negative 8. If we are subtracting here and it's not normal, what are we going to do here? A negative minus a negative, or subtracting a negative, is going to give us a what? 2 plus 8. What's that going to be? 10. What's this going to be? This one's easy. You should be able to look at it, identify it quickly, because anything times 0 is what? 0. And 2 minus 0 is what? 2. Good. What about this one? Okay, 2 minus 4 times 3. What's 4 times 3?
12.
What's 2 minus 12? Negative 10. Okay, what about 1? 2 minus 4 times 1 is 2 minus 4. Negative 2. Okay, and then 2 minus 4 times negative 3. So that's 2 minus negative 12, which is the same as what? 2 what? 2 plus 12, which would be what? 14. Okay, so if we graph this, and we're not going to graph it, but if we graph this, this is going to form a straight line. Okay, question?
I'm a little confused on how you got the negative 10, but 3.
On this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so if my equation is 2 minus 4, and my x value is 3, okay, what is 4 times 3?
4 times 3 is 12.
Yeah, 2 minus 12.
Oh.
It's
Oh.
just, yeah.
Okay.
So you're good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, are we good on that? Yes? Okay. Now, something different that we did, okay, when we completed a table, sometimes we were given the f of x value, okay? So if I have a table that looks like this, and I have a column for, or a row for my x, and then for my f of x, Julia, will you close that door, please? And let's make this an easy one. Okay, let's say I have x plus 4. F of x equals x plus 4. Okay, and I'm given some values here. Last time, all of my values were x, right? So I just did the inputs. Okay, what if I have some values here that are different? What if I did 2, negative 1, 4, 1, and 6? Okay, so what's different when I'm given a value that's on the bottom? How am I going to find, what do I need to find? If I have this f of x, that means this is what? Guys, look up here. That means this is 2. So on my equation, f of x equals x plus 4, I'm going to replace this 2, not for the x, that's going to replace what? This part, okay? You understand? Because this is my f of x row. This is the function row, the y value row, all of those. So I'm going to replace this with 2 equals x plus 4. And this just, all this is a what?
Two-step equation.
Not even a two-step, a one-step equation, right? So minus 4, what's 2 minus 4? Class, what's 2 minus 4? So this is negative 2 equals x. That means this is going to be have an input of what? Negative 2. Okay, do you see how we were able to use the output to find the input on that? Right? Okay. This one's easy. All we got to do is replace the what?
X.
Okay, what's negative 1 plus 4? You owe me $1, you pay, you have 4. Do you have money left?
Yes.
And if it's money you have, it's positive, right? So what's this going to be? 3. Now we got this one. This is the f of x, right? So we have 4 equals x plus 4. Well, this one's easy, right? What do we have? So this is 0. Okay, do you notice a pattern here? What's the pattern? What are these doing? What are these doing? Okay, so what's this going to be? 5. What's this going to be? Okay, and if we graph those, what are they going to form? A straight line, right? Because they're what? They're linear. Okay, does that make sense so far?
Can I copy this down?
Yeah, I'm gonna put another one up here, and I want you to complete the table, okay? Now, are you always gonna be able to identify a pattern here? Not necessarily. Some of these might jump more than one. Okay? Can I erase this?
Wait, just.
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's do, you guys complete this table for me. okay? And we'll make this an easy one. You guys kind of understanding this? Does this make a little more sense now? Okay. Let's say on this one I have 4x, my f of x rule, my function rule is 4x minus 8. I'm going to give you some values here. Let's say this is negative 2. Let's say this is negative 8. This is 4. This is 16. And this is 8. Okay? You have enough information to find all those missing parts of this function?
Yeah.
Okay. Do that. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that one real quick. Okay, while you're working, somebody help me with the first one. Okay, what am I going to do on this first one? Jane?
You're gonna switch out the x for -2.
So I'm going to replace this x with what?
-2,
Okay, and what is 4 times negative 2?
-8,
And negative 8 minus 8, don't say 0, what is that?
-16.
Negative 16, good. Okay, who can help me with the second one? Anybody? Forrest, help me with the second one. What am I going to replace here?
0.
I'm going to replace this one, right? So that means negative 8 equals 4x minus 8. This is what kind of equation? Is this a one-step or a two-step? Two-step equation. Do we know how to do two-step equations? Yes. We would add 8 here. We would add 8 here. We have 0 equals 4x. And as Forrest said, if you divide 0 by 4, what do you have? What do you have? 0. Good. Okay, somebody help me with this one. Jordan, help me with this one.
You're going to replace the x,
Okay, with a what?
4,
Okay, so 4 times 4 minus 8. What's 4 times 4?
16.
And 16 minus 8 would be what?
8.
8. Okay. What about this one? What am I going to replace here? Samir, what am I going to replace on this one?
The f and x.
Okay, so that's 16 equals 4x minus 8. I add 8 here and I add 8 here. What is 16 plus 8? So 24 equals 4x. Divide your side by what here? By 4. Very good. And what do you have?
6.
6 equals x. This is 6. What about the last one? Let's do this one in our heads. We're replacing x with what? 8. What's 4 times 8?
32.
32 minus 8? 24. Okay. Does that make sense? It's pretty easy, right? Okay. You just have to work at completing that table. Are we 100% good on that portion? Okay, good. What if I was to give you, let's just say I said I want you to graph this, and I asked you to use a function table. Okay, if this is all the information I give you, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to make a table, but you're also going to have to apply your own what? Your own inputs, your own x values. Okay? Now, you know how to graph this if I was graphing from slope-intercept, don't you? Because this has a slope and an intercept, doesn't it? But that's not what we're doing. We're graphing this as a function. Okay, so I'm going to make my own table. In other words, my values are not going to be given to you. The only thing I'm giving you is this. Y equals 2x plus 1, right? Right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to have an input. That's my x. I'm going to have a what? What's this column going to be?
Y.
Which is also known as my what? Output. Good. So this is my output, and then my last column is going to be my xy. These are the points I'm going to what? Graph. Now, because this is a linear function, I can put any points I want to in here, can't I? Right? Because they're going through the same rule. And as long as I do the equation right, they'll form a linear function, as long as I graph it. Now, I don't want to use big points here. Why? Because then I have to have a bigger graph, right? Okay, Trey, what's a good one to start with? 0. I love it. Let's start with 0. Okay, y equals, what does this mean? I'm replacing x with what? 0, right? So y equals 2 times 0 plus 1. What's 2 times 0? 0. 0 plus 1 is what? So my first point is 0, 1. Okay, what do we want to do for the next one? Kylie, what do you want to do next? 1. Okay, let's do 1. Y equals 2 times 1 plus 1. What's 2 times 1? 2, and 2 plus 1 is?
3.
So this one is 1, 3. Okay, Forrest, next one.
Negative 1.
Negative 1. Okay, so y equals 2 times negative 1 plus 1. What's 2 times negative 1? Negative 2. It's negative 2 plus 1. Negative 1. And we need to do one more. Jordan, which one are we going to do?
-2.
Negative 2. Okay. Would it matter if Jordan said 2? Or if Jordan said 3? Or if Jordan said 59? Would that still be on that same line?
Yeah.
Yes, it would. Okay. Jordan said negative 2. Let's do that. So y equals 2 times negative 2 plus 1. What's 2 times negative 2?
-4.
What's negative 4 plus 1? Negative 3. So this one is negative 2, negative 3. Okay. Did we write all those points down? And if it's a linear function, how many points do I want you to have? 4. So we're good on this, right? Okay. So let's graph this. Our first one is at 0, 1. Over 0, up 1. What's our next point? 1, 3. Over 1, up 3. What's our next one? Negative 1, negative 1. So back 1, down 1. Are we in good shape so far? Yeah. And what's our last point? Negative 2, negative 3. So back 2, down 3. Did we form a straight line?
Yes.
So did we graph that linear function correct? Okay. You provided your own points, right? Are you good with that? Okay, so we're,
Back with the thing so I can finish copying.
yeah, okay. So we're good on that part, right? There's only 2 more parts that are going to be on your test, okay? Graphing nonlinear functions that are parabolas that go, that cross or have their they start at the y-intercept, and then what we did yesterday, okay? Can I erase this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's take a look at this one, okay? This is a nonlinear function, okay? So if I have a nonlinear function, is that going to form a straight line?
No.
But what did I say? It's a nonlinear what? Function, right? So it's still going to be a function. So let's say I have y equals x squared plus 1. Okay? How do I know that this is not going to be a linear function? Because what do you see here? I have a square thing for this, right? Now, if you remember, when I make my table, okay, I have to have, instead of 4 points, how many do I have to have for this one? I have to have 5 points, okay? So I'm probably going to give you your values. Actually, I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do this one this way. So I have an x value, and then I have, we'll call this f of x. Okay, so if I give you your values, let's say I did 0, 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2. Does this look good to graph a nonlinear function?
Yeah.
All I have to do is plug these in for what? For x, right? So if I plug 0 in, what is 0 squared? And 0 plus 1 would be what? 1. Okay, if I plug 1 in, what's 1 squared? 1, and what's 1 plus 1? Now, if you remember, anytime I have opposite inputs, because of the square rule, any number squared, are you ever going to square a number and get a positive? I mean a negative?
No.
No. So no matter what, if I have opposite numbers here, this answer is going to be what? Same thing. But let's look and see. If I have negative 1 squared, what's negative 1 times negative 1? 1, and 1 plus 1 is what? 2. And if I plug it in here, 2 squared is what? Don't say 2. 4. And 4 plus 1 is? 5. 3. Who said 3? Give me a break. Okay, negative 2 squared. What's negative 2 times negative 2? 4 plus 1 is what? Do we have enough to graph here? Yeah, let's graph this. Okay, and if we did this right, it's going to form a what?
Parabola.
A parabola. Good. So let's graph this. Okay. First point is 0, 1. So over 0, up 1. Our next points are 1, 2, and negative 1, 2. So over 1, up 2. back 1, up 2. So far, we're in good shape. 2, 5, and negative 2, 5. So over 2, up 5, and back 2, up 5. Did we form a parabola?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We're good on that, right?
Yes.
Okay. When is this going to change so that it is not the pointy part, if you want to call it that, is not on the y-axis? When is that going to change? When we have an additional what? X value, okay? So if let's say I have this, function of x equals, let's say x squared plus 2x, okay? Right? We'll say minus 1. We'll get crazy here. Okay, let's do this one. And again, I'm going to give you some values here. I'm hoping this is helpful, guys. This is just what's going to be on your test, okay? All right, let's do this. We'll go 0, 1, 2, 3. We'll say 4. That's fine. All right. So let's do this, okay? This, I have 2 x values. What do I do? In other words, if I have an input for x and I have 2 x values, what does that mean for my x values? Do I just replace one of them? I replace both x values. So this, if I replace this with 0, this means 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 1. Should I be able to do that quick in my head? What is 0 squared? Plus 2 times 0. What's 2 times 0? This is a tough one. What's 0 plus 0? 0. And now let's get all cray-cray and add 1.
No, minus.
I mean subtract 1. Good call. What does that give us? Negative 1. We're good so far. Right? Now let's do this one. What's 1 squared? Plus 2 times 1. What's 2 times 1?
2.
So 1 plus 2 is? 3 minus 1? 2. Now let's do 2. What's 2 squared?
4.
4 plus 2 times 4 is?
8.
And 8 minus 1?
7.
7. Okay, 3. What's 3 squared? 9. 9 plus 2 times 3? 6. And minus 1? Okay. And then last one, 4. X squared plus 2x? 16 plus is what? 24 minus 1 is 23. Okay. Now this one, I just made up these numbers, and I don't know if this is actually going to form a. Let's try it. Let's do this one. Let's make this easy on ourselves. Okay. I'm going to use an actual example that is from what we did on Friday or on Tuesday.
Would that one work? Do you know?
I don't know if it would work. I'll go back and graph it in a moment, but let's see. If we had, let's do this one. X squared plus, no, we'll say minus 8x plus 12. Okay? And on this one, let's do, I'm trying to hurry so we can finish before we're done. Okay, let's say I've got x values. We'll go 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. If we did this first 2, okay, what's 2 squared? 4. What is, I'm replacing this x with a 2 here, right? So minus, what's 8 times 2?
Negative 16.
So 4 minus 16 is what? What's 4 minus 16? Huh? 12. Negative 12. And what's negative 12 plus 12? 0. Now, if you remember, when these go up by 1, okay, do you remember the first term is going to be the same, I mean, the first coordinate is going to be the same as the what? So if this is 0, these are going up by 1 each time, right? So I automatically know this is also what? 0. Okay, now let's do this one. 3 squared. What's 3 squared? 9. Minus what's 8 times 3? 24. What's 9 minus 24?
Negative 15.
Negative 15. Good. And what's negative 15 plus 12?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. So that's negative 3, which means this is also what?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. Now this one I've just got to solve for, right? I got to figure out what this is. So what's 4 squared? 16. What's minus 8 times 4? What's 16 minus 32?
Negative
Negative 16. What's negative 16 plus 12?
Negative 11.
negative 4. Okay. Did we complete our table? So what's next? What do we need to do next? Graph it. Let's graph it. Okay, so let's graph this first one. Over 2, up 0. Well, already this one's different, isn't it?
3 negative 3.
Okay, what's the next one?
3 negative
Over 3, down 3.
Yes.
And what's the next one?
4 negative 4.
Over 4, down 4. What's the next one?
Over 5 negative 3.
Over what?
Over 5 down 3.
Over 5,
Down 6.
sorry, down 3. And then what's the last one?
Over 6 down 0.
Right here, okay? So did we still form a parabola? We did. The difference was this one was not along the y-axis, okay? Does all of that make sense? Okay? That's what's going to be on your test tomorrow. If you will study what we did today, you're going to do great. And most of these I'm going to provide tables for you, okay? All right.